Hey runners, Elizabeth, your sports nutritionist here. Today I'm talking about how to fuel your ultra marathons. I'm going to be looking at what your body needs for fuel, some of the best foods and or beverages that you can be eating, and I'm going to teach you how to build or develop that race plan so that on race day, or days, some of you go particularly long there, you know what you're doing and you're not going to experience that GI distress and have the race that you're dreaming of. All right, now tune in. All right, let's talk about what's going on physiologically inside our bodies while we're running. Whether you're fat adapted or not, carbohydrates are king in these endurance events. The ratio of stored carbohydrates to stored fats that your body is using for energy is almost entirely dependent on the pace and effort that you're putting out. So the faster and harder that you're running, the faster you're burning through those stored carbohydrates. Now, no matter the speed, we all have a limited amount of stored carbohydrates. That's usually about 90 minutes or so. And then your body kind of will start relying on some fat, but you also want to make sure that after that 90 minutes, you're replenishing some of those carbohydrates so that your body has sustained energy. Now, the average runner can digest between 150 and 300 calories per hour. The problem is the average runner burns through anywhere from 400 to 1,000 calories an hour. So obviously, this varies widely between individuals, but you're not going to be able to replenish everything that you're burning. Otherwise, you'll get that GI distress. So you want to do your best to maintain a balance or consume as many calories as you can, hopefully carbohydrates, without getting that GI distress. So what are some good foods and beverages to be consuming while you're doing these ultra events? I like to divide it into two categories. I call that fluid and fuel. So the first, hydration or fluid, if you know me, you know that that is my always #1 in my book. It's a lot easier to recover from a caloric deficit than it is to bring your body back from dehydration. So make hydrating your #1 priority and make sure that you're consuming a beverage with electrolytes in it. That's sodium, potassium, magnesium. A good place to start is kind of that 300 to 400 milligrams per 16 ounces of water per hour. I've done an entire video, actually 2 or 3, on hydrating and dehydration, figuring out your sweat rate. All of these things are important when it comes to how much you need, so check out any of those videos to figure it out. The idea though, be consistent, be regular. Hydrating you usually want to do maybe every 10 to 15 minutes, tiny sips, so that you're staying consistent. So the second part of this equation is fuel. What you want are easily digestible carbohydrates that are a mix of fructose and sucrose. Studies have shown that that gives you a higher rate of carbohydrate absorption. So if you're looking at things like bananas, dried fruits, tortillas, almond butter sandwiches, those kinds of things, easily digestible carbohydrates, as well as some of those sports products, goos, chews, gels, mixes like you can, all of those kinds of things. Carbohydrates are best. Traditional athletes, you're going to want to replace about 30 to 40% of your calories burned with carbohydrates. More fat adapted athletes will look to replace 15 to 20% of your calories burned with carbohydrates. So again, this is a very general recommendation, but a good place to start. Average 150-pound runner, if you're more traditional, you'll look to have between 43 and 58 grams of carbohydrates an hour. If you're a little more fat adapted, you'd be doing anywhere from 22 to 30 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So starting point, and then you can kind of build or tweak from there. So now that we know kind of all the background information, I want to go through some of my best tips on how to actually develop your nutrition plan for the race. First off, and most important, pace determines the ratio of glycogen to fat that you're going to burn and kind of set the tone for what fuel and how much your body's going to need for the race. We can start with breakfast 2 to 3 hours before your race starts, with foods that you're actually used to, whether that's a roasted sweet potato, oatmeal, cereal, ramen, anything that you want, but make sure that you have that breakfast before your race, 2 to 3 hours. Next, you want to make sure that you're hydrating, kind of pre-hydrating in the 24 hours before your race. So get a water bottle, fill it up with your electrolyte beverage, sip on it throughout the day before your race. Next up, you want to pick pick your potion. Are you going to be fueling with gels, goos, solid foods, powders, sports bars? What mix of those, maybe all of the above? Find and start practicing with things that you know your body's going to want on race day that work well with you, but you want to make sure that you have several different options of things, because come race day, we all know you could be in the middle of a race and you might not feel like the roasted potatoes that you tried. You might want a sports bar, or you might want gels. Either way, have different options and know kind of what you might feel like in different situations. Consistency, you want to make sure that your fueling plan, you're giving yourself windows of opportunity to fuel and you're doing it regularly. So as I mentioned earlier, hydrating every 10 to 15 minutes and fueling in small bites every 20 to 30 minutes, potentially. If you're going to do solid foods, which I highly recommend, you want to do those more in the beginning of your race. So while your digestive system is still working and you're able to handle those, it will also help with more long-term sustained energy and kind of keep your body in that fluid and fuel balance. So the problem that a lot of runners get is they consume so much of those sugary gels and goos and chews that overloads their digestive system and they kind of get gut rot, and their intestines aren't able to absorb or process those nutrients. So solid foods at the beginning can kind of really help with that. You also want to make sure that you're hydrating. Your body's not going to be able to digest those foods if there isn't that fluid in there to help them with that. You always want to have a backup plan or a contingency plan. So if you start having GI issues, maybe back off all the food for a while and just do water until your stomach starts to calm. If you're extra hungry, this might be that option when you have some more of those solid foods. Say you're going to slow your pace down a bit so that you can consume some quality energy and get back on track. You also want to look if your body starts to cramp. Maybe that means you need some more electrolytes if your muscles are starting to get sore. So plan for these different situations. And then lastly, practice this in training. I tell my athletes we start working on it maybe 4 to 5 months in advance. Any long runs that you have, say 90 minutes or longer, use those as opportunities to practice that training fuel, try different things, try different formulas of foods, different mixes, so that your body is ready to handle and that you know in different temperatures and at different paces what your body likes and what you like to have so that you'll be able to fuel that race properly. This portion, I am copying a phrase from Dax Shepard. I'm calling it expert on expert. Thought it'd be fun to look at a couple of the pro ultra runners, what they use to fuel their races, to give you some ideas. So Mike Wardian, who did the 184-mile FKT, he did a mix of goo, Roctane, and water. He did avocado with sea salt, some hash browns, soup. He said he did Coca-Cola, ginger ale, help calm the stomach, bananas, and then tortillas with almond butter. So obviously over 184 miles, that's plenty of time to consume a lot of different kinds of foods. Now Scott Jurek, he likes Cliff Organic Energy Foods, which is a kind of a pouch that resembles kind of baby food, so mashed up foods together. He does sandwiches dipped in olive oil. And then on the hotter races, he says he likes coconut milk ice cream, which I would think sounds pretty good. But again, that depends on if you have a crew with you that can carry this stuff along, because I imagine most aid stations don't stock coconut milk ice cream. Courtney Dauwalter, one of my favorite ultra runners, she likes honey stinger waffles and chews. And then she does Tailwind Endurance in her bottles. And then Chrissy Mole, who won UTMB, I think even 2017, she likes to do peanut butter and jelly before the race. And then she does a product called EFS, their liquid shot, every 45 minutes. And then her race plan is really detailed. She does their pre-race every 2 hours and then has smaller bites of Cliff Bars or brownies throughout the race as kind of some solid food. So as you can see, there are a whole bunch of different options. The most important thing though I want to make sure is that you realize aid stations at these runs all have different things. They're all spread out at different distances, so you really want to know the race that you're going into, the terrain that you're looking at, what things you're going to be able to carry if you actually have a support crew, what they're going to be able to bring you. So not only do you need to plan what works well with your gut and your stomach and what you're going to want, but you also have to plan logistically how you're going to be able to get all this food. At the end of the day, your digestive system and GI tract is entirely individual. What you're going to be consuming has to work for you. Don't be eating things that you don't like just because some pro runner does. Find things that work and that you're going to enjoy over the course of a really long day or days. Have a plan. If you don't have a plan, that's what I consider to be failure. But you have all these months ahead of time to figure it out. If you eat too much, you're gonna have GI issues. If you don't drink enough, you're gonna be dehydrated. Plan ahead, take care of yourself, and at the very end of the day, have fun out there. You're gonna be out for a long time. There you have it. Whether you're tackling your first ultramarathon or your 75th, hopefully you picked up some valuable tips and tricks today. Be sure and click that like button. Leave me a comment down below if you have any questions, or tell me what some of your favorite ultramarathon foods are, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of these videos that come out every week. All right, see you in the next one.